We're back to the Neil Haley Show. My guest today is author of Lethal Range, Ryan Steck. How are you? It's a Matthew Reed thriller. How are you, sir? And thanks for stopping by today.
Thank you so much for having me, man. It's good to be here.
How did it all start, you becoming an author? Kind of how did that go? Were you always an author, or is it something new for you?
No, this is new for me. Lethal Range is my second book. Originally, I was a sports reporter for like 1 year, and I covered the Detroit Lions. They never won. It was awful. I ended up transitioning into the publishing world, and I've been a freelance editor. I work with a lot of authors, and then I run a website called therealbookspy.com, where it's kind of like a one-stop shop for all things thriller. And at a certain point, you know, you work on books, you cover them, you start to realize, like, man, I really love to tell some stories as well. And when I was in 10th grade, all the way back in high school, man, I had an English teacher with this really cool intern who gave us this assignment. And she said, you can do anything you want. You can swear, you can have violence, action, doesn't matter. So like any 15-year-old kid, I went way over the top with that. And I went home and wrote a short story about a kid named Matthew Red who had to protect his school as like a vigilante. And now, as like, by the way, I got suspended from school for a week for that. And so in my adult life, now I'm married, you know, you're grown up. I have 6 kids, new perspective. And
I have 6 kids, but I'm soon to be divorced, but there's a difference, but I'll continue.
Go. Well, God bless you. Cause 6 kids, I know the struggle. It is a lot, man. It's like Jim Gaffigan said, you know, what's it like having all those kids? And he said, imagine you're in the ocean, you know, drowning, and someone throws you a baby. And I'm like, yeah, that kind of fits. It's a lot. But I just thought about this character that I wrote as a teenager, and I thought, where would he be today? What would he be doing in today's world? And I couldn't let it go. And so I ended up writing my first book, Fields of Fire, came out last year, starred Matthew Red. He's back in Lethal Range. And the kicker of it all is that the principal who suspended me is now my kid's principal. And he's a super good guy, but I like to joke with him and tell him that Matthew Red got me a week off school and a book deal. So it all worked out okay.
Okay, so the book deal. So who's your book deal with? Just that's awesome.
So I'm with Tyndale House Publishing. And I actually will have another announcement. Maybe we can come back, man. I have another really big announcement for another series I'm going to soon be taking over.
Well, you just make sure you follow me on all different social platforms. We're going to stay connected. You have to teach me about Twitch. I have a social media podcast agency that's growing in other business ventures and lots of joint ventures. Exciting times coming for me. And that's the fun part of building a brand. Like you're building on Twitch, you're building the same type of a brand where authors are seeing you as somebody of sort. It's like we can create something, then we have to find the TAM, which Neil Patel talks about all the way. And once we can figure out what the TAM is, we can figure out how much money we can make doing that. So that's the thing, that people make mistakes, write books before they have a following, do all these specific things before they figure out build as a creator. And there's so many opportunities as creators, but that's for no time. So do you hope this could be a movie with the thriller end of it?
Yeah, I will say, so in Hollywood, I'm repped by WME, and we literally wrote the part for Jason Momoa. Matthew Red sort of is Jason Momoa, and we just kind of got to his camp and got him the books and everything, and then the strikes happened. So now no one's talking, no one knows what's going on. And of course, it's like the worst timing ever for me. But as a writer, you know, I can't argue that I stand with the people striking for sure. Hopefully everyone comes back to the table, deal gets done, and Jason, you know, wants to talk about this, because I would love for him to do it.
So how did you get repped by WME? Was it based on your following, or do you think it was just, or you hustled?
I mean, so Mike, through the literary side, I had a big following in publishing, because the book Spy is up to 2 million readers. So we kind of make some noise with that. My literary agent, John Talbot, was the one who suggested that we go to WME, and they read the books, really liked them, and said, yeah, we want to rep this, and we want to shop them. So
you sold 2 million books?
No, but I have 2 million followers on the book Spy. I would love to sell 2 million books.
So explain that. So you see, you've never had an interview like this, but that's because I'm a marketer and I want to learn this stuff, and I'm all about learning and to be this sponge. So 2 million followers on one of your platforms.
Correct. Yeah. So therealbookspy.com is it's a website. I've literally worked as like a critic and an insider for thrillers. So if you enjoy thriller novels, that's a website for you. Interviews, Q&As, cover reviews, book deal announcements. everything. So we kind of do it all there, and built a big following with that.
That's fantastic. It's a lot of great things. And how do you think you built the following? Hustling, or just really niching down into that area and then figuring out thrillers and see that there was no real competition, so you could push
That's what it was. Yeah, there was no one. So it's a little bit like in the literary world, thrillers are sort of like action movies. When you watch the Oscars, and I don't watch the Oscars, but I always Google who won, and I've never heard of any of the movies that win Best Picture, like, ever. But I always see Mission Impossible. I see Fast and Furious. They make $1 billion. Well, in the literary world, that's what thrillers do. It's the same thing, but they're kind of like that redheaded stepchild, if you will. They don't ever get the love or the coverage that other genres do.
But define a thriller for me. That's not horror. That's not horror thriller, right? No.
I mean, it could. So there's a lot falls under the umbrella of thriller, but I like to say anything that gets your heart rate up a little bit and makes you want to stay up all night reading it.
And so next to romance, that's and true crime, that's probably the top 3, right?
It's up there. Yeah. I mean,
when are you gonna have your own thriller podcast? You interview the authors. When are you gonna have your own thriller podcast? We're just reading.
Yeah, we're working on it. Yeah, for sure, working on it.
I think because you could definitely have that skill set. So why should people read this book? It's because it's second in the series, right? And you had success in the first one.
Yeah, I mean, so the whole like idea with this series is we never see these household name characters. You don't see Jack Ryan or Jason Bourne out west. And if you think about it, when you have these lone wolf operator types, it's a perfect place for them. When you're out west, backup is hours away at best, at worst, days. So you're on your own. That heightens everything from the tension to the suspense. It raises the stakes, and I thought that's kind of the perfect place to put a guy like Matthew Redd. He's 6'3", 265. He's a sledgehammer in a scalpel's world, and he's come back home on the first one to investigate the death of his adopted father, and uncovers a global conspiracy. He ends up staying, putting some roots down in Montana. In book 2, he's a little bit older. He's married, has a family. That's the life I know. And he wants to leave those days of door kicking behind and sort of settle down, run his ranch. And it just doesn't work out for him.
That's why country does so well, like ranch and Western, almost the way you put this together. That's another big genre that you have a huge fan base. So add that in thriller and you got a good deal, especially with all the things from Outer Range to, again, we know all the other ones. What's it called? The one that's really popular with Kevin Costner. So you really
Yellowstone. Yeah. I wrote it before Yellowstone. And I will tell you, when we took temperature from like publishers, it was like, I don't know, people want a modern day Western. I didn't fully see it that way myself. And I was like, I probably wouldn't call it that. Yellowstone came out, took off. And the next thing I know, every interview, I'm like, so it's a modern day Western.
So that's perfect. That's the gimmick. But you're hoping to show them that he's grown up, but he's not. Because guess what? You can't get out of that, right?
You cannot. No. Enemies new and old unite, bring a war straight to Matthew Redd's front door, and he is sort of forced back into the action and finds himself in a battle he can't possibly, lose, but can't really win on his own. And things spiral from there and really take off.
Tell me how fantastic it is to have readers who read your books. I mean, it's like I have certain, like, the followers and social media or different things. Like when I go on Clubhouse, everyone loves to come hear me speak. I came back to Clubhouse after having taken a year off or a year and a half off, come back to specific places. It's got to feel good that there are people that just love what you do. You had those certain readers that couldn't wait till that second book came out.
Yes, and no one warns you how different it is putting the second book out from the first one. So my first book came out, you dream of it your whole life. I tested positive for COVID that morning. So they canceled the book tour, canceled all my interviews. No, it sucked, man. Like, I was like, oh, this is not how I imagined this going. But the good news is you spend a year building a readership. Yeah, you start to gain fans of the series, of the characters. So when the second one dropped, yesterday was absolutely unbelievable. I was overwhelmed. So many people were tweeting me that they stayed up till 12:01 a.m. to get the Kindle. The second it dropped, stayed up all night reading it. That is, every thriller writer dreams of that, Sincerely, that's what you hope for. People read your book, can't sleep. One more chapter, stay up all night reading it. Yes, I really think of the readers because I'm a fan of this genre. So if you pick up one of my books, I want to entertain you. I want you to have fun.
Right. Can you be a New York Times best-selling author at one point or not?
Was I?
Yeah.
I'm working. I'm trying. No, I'm only on book 2, but it's definitely
best-selling for the first one.
The first one did not hit the Times list, no.
But anything else? Yes, some of the best selling, right? Or not?
Yeah. We hit some lists, but that's kind of like the gold standard.
Right. Yes, because you do it right, you promote it right, and all those things. All right. So, where's the best place people can find information, purchase your book, find about you, and also your blog and all that stuff? The website.
Yeah. So, therealbookspy.com. You can find everything about me there, or ryansteck.com. I'm on Instagram at Ryan Steck Author and The Real Book Spy. I'm on Twitter, or whatever Elon's calling it now, at Ryan Steck Author and TheRealBookSpy.com. And Lethal Range is in bookstores right now. Find it wherever books are sold: Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Walmart, Target, BAM, wherever.
All right. We appreciate it, sir. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right. You're listening, watching The Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a moment.